And thus we begin what can probably be considered the 3-part finale to the show. Possibly only 2 or even 1 part, but I'll get to that in a bit. We begin with Emperor Mavro, which is about the titular emperor of the Armada arriving and taking charge. He's not happy either. The arrival of his ships destroys the other Armada vessels aside from the flagship as punishment for their failure. You may have noticed that in the screenwave version of these episodes, since I had to cut the theme song on YouTube for copyright reasons, I didn't show a villain for the Megaforce spot. There are 2 reasons for this. 1, because the timing in the song required me to cut someone, and 2, as you may have noticed, Megaforce itself is a little confused about who its final villain is. Part of that is because of the Frankensteining of the show with the 2 Sentais. First Malkor was the big bad, then it was Vrak, then Vakar, then Vrak again, and now this Emperor guy. Considering he's only in it for the last 3 episodes and really isn't any more impressive than Malkor, really, why the hell should I even consider him the final boss? He's just some asshole who has to take over the spot because we lost all the other ones. A fun fan theory was that Gosei himself was the real villain, that Lord Zed or someone else was the man behind the curtain to Gosei's great and powerful Oz. Would certainly explain the spinning fan and dark atmosphere of the command center. But nope, it is indeed Mavro, and since this guy is barely a blip on my radar, he even comes with his own new forgettable flunkies to discard Vakar's slightly more memorable but ultimately underdeveloped flunkies, I see no reason to dignify him with the spot of the guy who we've been building up to for 2 seasons. The Rangers defeat a bunch of X-Borgs, describing them as stragglers, and make it clear that they think the battle is basically over.
They've got no more monsters.
What do you base that off of?
We destroyed the Prince and Vrak. The Armada must only have soldiers left.
Exactly, bro. They've got no more ammunition.
And they had other minions that you've seen, plus Prince suggests someone else in charge higher up. Or hell, at least an empire of this size and power suggests that other players will try to take their place even if they're not in the line of succession. And as you see, X-Borgs are still being dispatched to the planet, so clearly someone is sending them. The new royal ships start attacking City Town.
There's hundreds of them.
As opposed to the hundreds you've already destroyed with your Megazord. Despite the name of the episode being Emperor Mavro, it's really about Damaris getting a chance at redemption for failing to keep the prince safe.
That's Damaris.
Who's that?
He's the most powerful warrior in the universe.
Yeah, pity we never saw that developed. Spoilers, he's destroyed in this episode. The most powerful warrior in the universe! Also, I hate to call bullcrap on that title even more, but if he's that powerful, why isn't he the Emperor? The bigger issue with this string of episodes, and the series overall, as I've suggested throughout this overview, is that it's just a sequence of fight scenes. They're impressive fights, I'll give you that, but this season has been that for the most part. All fight, no substance. Yes, there have been character-focused episodes, but it's not like we saw an arc for anyone except for Robo Knight. Otherwise, the focus is on fighting and fighting and fighting. And I'm sorry, but unless it's just an effects reel, I really don't care about the fights if I don't care about the characters. Oh sure, they're likable enough as they are. It's one of the reasons why I think this is still better than Overdrive. It's just I'm so utterly bored. They repeat the same motions over and over and over. We will conquer you. No, you won't. Surrender now. We will never surrender. Oh crap, resistance isn't futile. We rock. We didn't need reaffirmations of humanity's awesomeness in RPM in every episode. We just needed struggle and character dynamics. Flaws to overcome, dilemmas to solve. Time Force asked us questions about whether we truly have a choice for ourselves. Wild Force had our Red Ranger struggle to show compassion in the face of a harsh world. Jungle Fury believed in redemption and moving past guilt. SPD saw a team of has-beens slowly rise to greatness. Even Overdrive, much as I dislike it, asked questions about personal identity and memory. For a series that is scoffed at by many as nothing more than just guys in spandex hitting rubber-suited monsters with the most childish mindset in the world, one of the reasons it has endured and is still enjoyed by adults 20 years later is because sometimes it's not just shoot the bad guy. But we need to move on to the plot, what little there is. Damaris captures the Red Ranger, keeps him unmasked for all the world to see to try to get Earth to surrender, And of course, despite even Ernie seeing him, he doesn't recognize the kid with a blindfold over his face. My friends, I present you with the second dumbest person in all of Power Rangers. But of course, he's rescued and Damaris, greatest warrior in the universe, is destroyed. The episode ends with them going to a rock concert, consisting of stock footage from Samurai of Mia and Antonio on stage from that episode where Mia saw her brother again. It's shameless, especially since this version of the concert looks like it's done in some community theater ballroom, whereas the footage of the stage shows people in chairs in the front row. Keep the lazy train a-rollin'. We begin our finale with The Wrath, or possibly Legendary Battle. See, time to complain about DVDs again. The last DVD of Super Megaforce, unless there's another one I couldn't find, is labeled as just Legendary Battle, a movie version consisting of the episodes The Wrath and the finale Legendary Battle. This is an extended version of the two episodes that was released later than the original broadcast. We'll be looking at this based off of that extended version, since I always contend that if you filmed something with the intention of putting it in something, then that's the true version, as it were. Well, that and because the extended version is superior to the original aired version, but not by much. See, it's only in the extended version where the Rangers actually morph into Lightspeed Rescue in the entire damn season. Even the Alien Rangers got a single morph. We show more Die Ranger morphs than some of the actual Power Ranger teams getting represented. Oh, but the lazy train is not the only one on the rails, for now we have the stupidity train. Despite just last episode clearly indicating that there were more Armada forces and people who would be in charge, Orion is leaving Earth because they all feel that the Armada is done with. He's going back to Andrasia to rebuild it. Now, some have wondered what the hell he means by that, since he was pretty dang certain everyone else on Andrasia was dead, but remember, it's a big damn planet. Other people could have survived, and he could be seeking them out as part of rebuilding it. He stayed in the same spot for months, and he was just a miner at a village. If he survived, it's likely other people did too. Mind you, it could just have been writer miscommunication. It's not like Orion's first episode and this one were written by the same guy. Oh wait, they were. Well, okay, part 2 where he explained everything was a different writer, but I would hope there was some communication between the damn writers. Or maybe they just forgot what they had written. Or maybe they really do just expect Orion to sit on the beach and build sandcastles that he claims is the new Andrasia. Whatever. The point is that despite hiccups like this in the writing continuity, the departure itself is well written.
Don't be sad because we have to say goodbye. Be glad we got to meet in the first place.
Okay, I'll be glad we got to meet. Right after I'm sad for just a little bit longer.
He tells each ranger about what they taught him, the development he went through, how he used to be full of a desire for revenge, but they all helped heal him from that. Sure is a damn pity that we never got to see any of that. Best we got was a fashion montage and him once in a while talking about how it sucks to lose his world. But yeah, he departs in his stolen Armada ship.
Look me a kipper. I'll be back for breakfast.
But of course, after he leaves, Tensu intercepts Armada transmissions.
That's set a course for Earth. The real invasion begins now.
Real invasion?
Oh yeah, that one we saw before was just a dress rehearsal, I guess. Actually, it's that Mavro is recalling every Armada ship in the entire galaxy to converge on Earth. The Rangers are naturally a bit worried about hundreds of thousands of ships coming to their little neck of the woods, especially since Orion just left.
No, it's not just us. Look around you. All the Rangers who came before us are here too.
So really, we're not just 5. We're over 100, all fighting for Earth.
Lavira is sent out. It's okay if you've forgotten who she is. I've only mentioned her once or twice before in passing. To try to redeem herself for her failure, fighting in her own Megazord. And she's destroyed. You can see why I didn't mention her that much either. But here's where I really have to complain. See, from what I've read, this fight in Gokaiger was originally supposed to be of representatives from the first 5 Sentai. So of course, in the adapted version, everyone but Troy is still in Sentai forms, except him, who's now Mighty Morphin. See, it's one thing to just reuse the Sentai footage due to not caring about editing them out, But it's a whole new form of laziness when you actually bother to film the Sentai suits with the Mighty Morphin 1. They actually went out of their way to film new shots of Sentai-only Rangers for this fight. But whatever, the Armada forces arrive. And thus we begin Countdown to Destruction, the lame version. Armada ships fill the sky, and even our superfluous characters are watching. Mavro calls out for the Rangers to surrender. They refuse, copy and paste the same dialogue into every episode. The Rangers morph as the Armada begins their attack. Buildings are leveled, people flee, and we're right back where the season started. They form the Megazord, quickly mentioning that they still have the Q-Rex on their side. They begin destroying Armada ships even while taking heavy damage. Realizing they have their own fleet, they summon all their Zords, even the original Megaforce ones, and boom, 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 bazow, bazow, pachoo, pachoo!
Yes! A few thousand down!
Nice!
And then even the entire fleet seems to be destroyed, and people go back outside cheering for the Rangers. You know what I find so fascinating? You'd think 20 years later, with the evolution of television programs from the early 90s to today, that things would be better. The presentation would be vastly improved over what came before. As time has passed, this show itself has developed, some seasons being more serialized than others, some with a very clear endpoint in mind for them, internal character development for as many of the people on it as they can, Bulk and Skull's evolution over 6 years. And then we get to this. No serialization. Terrible writing, little if any character development, cheap attempts at nostalgic imagery, and yet not understanding why those elements actually worked, why people actually cared about them, and why they're still talked about. This is not me being a fanboy for all the very original stuff. As I've said, In Space is my favorite season, the one that ended that era. The original show had tons of problems. 30-year-old teenagers. The episodes were ridiculous and formulaic. Huge plot holes. The goody-good morality of our heroes that turned them into cartoonish paragons instead of people. And yet it was charming. It was convincing and fully embraced its silliness when it needed to. And when it needed to be serious, it was serious. Lord Zed's introduction was 3 episodes, showing how dangerous this new enemy was. But if you really break it down, all he did was unleash a squad of putties and a single powerful monster. And yet, there's more dread and menace demonstrated by these 2 little things than an entire season's worth of Armada ships and X-Borgs, because they weren't treated as something we could destroy in the thousands in a single stroke while rambling about teamwork. And when Zordon gave them new Zords, it was treated with importance. That this really was the next step in the fight, the escalation of the conflict. Instead, it's Gosei randomly handing out Zords and weapons for no other reasons than he felt like it. This isn't a celebration of the history of Power Rangers. It's a mockery of it, an unintentional parody. There is no tension here. In Countdown to Destruction, it actually felt like the world was ending. This is why season finales since then have followed a similar pattern of destruction and overwhelming numbers. Because even if it's technically the same points over and over, there's a real sense of despair and hopelessness to see the base destroyed, armies of foot soldiers, and mass devastation. Because if nothing is treated like something to be worried about, why the hell should we care about it? I think the only time this wasn't played up to some degree was Jungle Fury, because they were focusing on character stuff and badass martial arts instead. And it worked. We don't even get that here. 1 minute the Rangers are crapping their pants about the possibility of millions of ships, and in the next minute, well, that was easy. But of course, that's not the end. Orion intercepts a transmission about the Armada's second wave heading to Earth and turns around, hoping to help the Rangers. That second wave arrives and the attack begins anew, their Zords suddenly getting knocked out of the sky in an instant, even though literally less than a minute ago they were blowing up thousands by the second. The Megazord crashes and the Rangers are expelled from it.
I am Mavro, Emperor of the Armada. Your Power Rangers have been destroyed! You have one last night to savor your despair!
And now we enter the actual legendary battle episode portion of the finale. We see various scenes of people fleeing or trapped, and they get some unexpected help.
Don't worry, guys, we've got this.
Oh great, Carter Grayson's here. Give him 2 guns and a bottle of water and he'll take down the Armada in an hour.
He's all right.
Thank you.
Leo, good to see you, but what the hell are you doing on Earth?
Hold on. We'll get you out.
Oh, hey guys, this is your finale they're ripping off with this episode.
It's okay. I'm here to help you.
I can't. I'm scared.
Oh, hey Tommy, good to see you still have Saba. Wait, where the hell's the driver of this vehicle? Or did the kid do this and the Armada had nothing to do with it? Well, enjoy those cameos, guys. Truly, this was worth waiting 2 years for. The Megaforce Rangers regroup as we get some more cameos. Damon and West listening in on people discussing their imminent doom, but of course there's no Bulk and Skull this season to tell them the Rangers will save them. Oh, hey Corone, remember when you caused this much horror and chaos? Good times. Better than these. Troy confirms with Gosei that the Megaforce Zords have all been destroyed, and that's the last we hear from Gosei for the entire finale. Even in the extended version. Things are pretty grim, of course.
The Earth is in a desperate situation. But the people out there believe in us. Gosei believes in us. The past Rangers believe in us. Or they wouldn't have entrusted us with their powers.
Yeah, well, maybe the past Rangers could bother to raise their morphers and help out. And yeah, they were rescuing people. That's a good thing. But it's been hours since then, and many of them still have their powers. So maybe instead of just trusting you to save the day, they can actually be Power Rangers and truly unite. Just saying. Orion also crashes and joins the Rangers.
What's the plan?
We fight back.
That is the most real, authentic, hysterical laugh of my entire life, because that is not a plan.
It's barely a concept.
Yeah, I know I used that back in the Samurai review. If they're gonna be lazy with stock footage, why can't I? At dawn, the Armada's legions march on City Town as ordinary citizens start grabbing anything they can use as weapons. But the Rangers arrive to save them from being executed via alien guns. Hey, 2 guesses what their dialogue is. Hint, it has to do with not surrendering.
All of you, get somewhere safe.
I really hate comparing it to Countdown to Destruction because it seems unfair, but they are so desperately trying to ape the same imagery of it that it's impossible not to. It's especially necessary to remember the human factor here. For all of Troy's protestations about humanity uniting together to oppose the alien invasion, we don't see any of that here. We don't have a Bulk and Skull here to rally people to help in the fight, which you would think would just be Mr. Burley and Ernie, give them an actual reason to exist, but nope, they were just really poor comic relief. Sometimes. And so the Armada ships resume laying waste to everything. Again. Realizing they need to take down the Emperor himself, Troy and Orion take the stolen Armada ship to his command ship, while the other Rangers engage Mavro's flunkies. Well, obviously, they just need to pretend to be part of the fleet. Maybe pretend to be returning from a patrol and... Or you can just be shooting at everyone and say, your shields are holding, to explain why the hell the thousands of other ships around you can't blast you out of the sky. You know, it just occurred to me that this episode is kind of stupid. To compare again to Countdown to Destruction, the reason Andros was flying up to the Dark Fortress was because his sister was there. He had a personal stake in all of this. What's going on here? Troy and Orion are going to a command ship to stab some dude named Emperor Mavro who, in the majority of shots he's in, has been sitting down, leaning on his hand, and looking utterly bored. I know the feeling. Anyway, they crash into the command ship and storm the bridge.
Is that supposed to frighten me? You two are so pathetic I don't even need to stand to defeat you.
God, even the villains are lazy in this season. Although admittedly, he does impress by being able to hold them off while still sitting. However, eventually they force him to stand, and Orion distracts the Emperor while Troy somehow learns how to control an alien spaceship and turns all of the ship's guns on every other Armada ship. So, comparison again. Our Red Ranger tearfully kills the beloved mentor of several years of the franchise in the desperate hope that his sacrifice will eliminate the forces conquering the universe, turns bad guys good, and hopefully save the life of his beloved sister who has been mortally wounded while under mind control. Or a guy more robotic than the actual robot on the show manages to take control of a single ship's guns and destroys thousands if not millions of enemy ships rather conveniently in the span of a single minute. Truly, this is deserving of legendary status. On the ground, the flunky is destroyed, while on the command ship, the Rangers blast the bridge console to send the ship crashing to Earth. Fortunately, they manage to escape with the in-space forms, riding galaxy gliders. Once again, not even trying to hide where they ripped this off from. But it's not over yet. In the original broadcast version, Mavro died with his ship, but in the extended cut, he survives and challenges the Rangers once more. The dude is still saying he's gonna win, even though his entire fleet has been decimated and all troops under his command are gone.
We can't afford to hold anything back. Let's go all out. Every power, every mode we've got.
It is pretty cool to see a blitzkrieg of modes, and as I said, this is where they finally do a lightspeed morph. I could be pedantic when they do legendary battleizers, and note that like none of these are battleizers, but whatever. Semantics when they've done far worse.
Despite your best efforts, you cannot defeat me! My power is greater than yours!
Shut up! They finally kill him as he whines that they won't defeat his army, and we soon see a force of thousands of X-Borgs marching towards them. Probably a combination of stragglers from the ground invasion and survivors from the command ship attack.
How can we defeat an army this size?
Ooh, how about just like every other time you have in this season? Stop trying to pretend this is intimidating or impressive. However, they do soon spot help arriving.
Legendary Rangers. Real ones.
You guys took your sweet-ass time, didn't ya? And while they do try to prevent there being multiple Tommies in the group shots, they ultimately forgot that there are now duplicate TJs, Cassies, Ashleys, and Carloses with both turbo and in space at the same time. The Rangers approach, taking off their helmets to reveal the ones we saw earlier in the episode, with the addition of Mike and Emily from Samurai. I won't try to ask how the hell Tommy has the Green Ranger powers again. Take your pick. The legendary Ranger stuff unlocked it again. He got the duplicate coin that had been left with his clone back when the White and Green Ranger fought. It's really not important.
I've dreamt about this.
Yeah, why were you having those dreams again, Troy?
There's a simple explanation for that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You don't have to do it alone this time. We're here to fight by your side.
Why don't you take the lead?
Ready, guys?
While, of course, they only assume their regular Megaforce mode because of the stock footage, I do like that they take those forms symbolically, since they don't need the super forms in this fight.
I love being a Power Ranger.
Thanks, Corone, for reminding us you were Astronomer? The hell was that for?
Time to create a new legend!
And thus, the actual titular legendary battle begins. A mixture of stock footage, some new fight footage, and it's all very impressive and cool and...
Hello, old friend!
Glad to be back.
So anyway, naturally this fight can't go without the Rangers talking over it and just letting us enjoy it. No, we need to hear them say, "Nice, Wild Force," as if we couldn't appreciate it without their commentary. You were so lazy you didn't know that wasn't Tommy! Go to hell! Oh, who cares? Megaforce kills the last remaining X-Borgs and they say farewell.
Well, it's time for us to leave. We'll always be with you.
And they ascend into heaven? What? The Rangers lie in the sand, exhausted from the constant battle of the last few episodes. Gia kisses Jake on the cheek and... What the hell are you doing that for? I thought a Ranger never lets go of their weapon, Troy. Dickhead. That's it. No epilogue. No wrap-up of the characters or Gosei. No reflection on everything they've been through. Toss a sword down into the ground, and we're done. You know, I'd say they rivaled Overdrive for their manufactured character development for their ending, but it really does reflect this season overall. The action is over. Throw down the action scene weapon. No characters, no people. The fight scenes are done, so who cares? That was super mega stupid. As you can imagine from the last several days of your life I've stolen with this recap and review, I don't think Megaforce is a very good series. Characterization is shallow on the whole, and the writing is insipid, with the same tired repetitions of "never surrender" in one variation or another. The side characters contribute nothing to the series, and the villains are boring, evil for the sake of being evil, and ultimately completely forgettable. This season would just be mediocre on its own, but the fact that it fails so utterly at being a 20th anniversary celebration of the franchise means that it falls into the category of awful. I barely know where to begin with this. But I suppose to be a bit odd, we'll start from the end. From what I recall at the time the show was airing, many were hanging on to it in the hopes that the legendary battle would at least be satisfying for a nostalgia trip, especially with the promise of a returning group of Rangers. Obviously, it did not end up meeting with people's expectations. As I tried to explain earlier, fan service without meaning behind it does nothing but remind people, yep, this is a thing you remember, much like the reference to Angel Grove in Once a Ranger. Simply the fact that they transform into past Rangers doesn't amount to anything. I felt nothing during those moments because there's no associating context to them except for in the tribute episodes. And even then, most of those were botched badly in their storytelling. The lack of any characters from some of those tributes is so terrible in its execution and so heartbreaking in its disrespect that it feels more like they were forced to do them instead of out of any genuine love for the material. I don't need to repeat just how boring endless fight scenes could be, but we need to talk about the legendary battle itself and, once again, wasted time and effort. If you paid attention to the theme song of Super Megaforce, the shots featuring Tommy's Green Ranger had the visible silver stripe first seen in Dino Thunder. It was pointed out later to the production how inaccurate that was, so they took care to digitally correct it in the actual broadcast. And look, I hate continuity errors like that, but it's really small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. I didn't walk away from Fighting Spirit thinking, wow, an interesting look into Tommy's psyche and the various Ranger roles he's had, but that silver stripe was just the worst! Instead of worrying about a dumb aesthetic mistake, they could have spent time and money having those Rangers do more than just stand around looking stoic or rescuing random people. You could have had more interaction with the Rangers, another tribute episode, getting rid of the Sentai-only teams, something that made more sense. But then again, wasted money is another part of this problem. There is an episode devoted to Tensu losing his memory and going through the city. And while I appreciate time devoted to a minor character, this was time and money spent on something that ultimately meant nothing other than a goofy excursion with no repercussions. It's a glorified filler episode that probably cost more money to produce than just having a past Ranger appear or editing out Sentai footage. It required animators, editors, and cameramen to do location work in the city in areas that they probably wouldn't normally film. And what's most irritating about it is that in a normal season, this would have had the normal balance of American footage and Sentai footage. But in this season, it's an oddity because most episodes, it's more Sentai footage than American stuff. In yet another episode that balances original footage better with Sentai stuff, a hole gets blasted into the Megazord, necessitating the Rangers to fix it while Emma and Orion quick change cosplays to deal with a monster. Again, this clearly cost them more money than they needed for what is essentially a filler episode. What were they thinking? No explanation is ever given for the other Rangers appearing, either in the previous episodes or in the legendary battle. They're just around for some reason. They're apparently watching the main team, but we never learn why. Never learn how they knew about what's going on, why they don't actively help join the fight. It's madness. The only explanation that I would buy based on the way they all departed is that these are not the original Rangers. We saw the original Rangers earlier helping people out, but the ones we saw here, I'm guessing they're actually the spirits of the Rangers from the Ranger Keys. Manifestations of the real people, but nothing more. It would certainly explain where the hell Robo Knight came from. We might be able to say Casey's earlier appearance was a manifestation. Except Mentor G is not a Ranger, so clearly him and Jaden were around, implying that the other Rangers were watching. Same goes for Corone having an Astronema flashback for no reason, especially if she's not the real person. So again, you have to wonder why they didn't help to step in and this makes no sense! There's controversy with the legendary battle cameos too. Several actors were invited back, only for the invitations to be rescinded afterwards for budget reasons. What? Okay, Power Rangers is notorious for its low budget in places, except they've clearly been spending money on things that do not matter. Shot-for-shot recreations of battles, original footage of Sentai teams that were not in Power Rangers, the Tenzu is Lost episode. And hey, Power Rangers is an action show, but I'm pretty sure it's more expensive to film fight scenes with explosions and sparks and choreography than it is to shoot two characters talking to each other in the friggin' juice bar or the command center. Do a plot about the power in the command center being cut off for some reason. Noah and, say, Troy are alone in there and have to fix it, giving us a chance for character development. It's called a bottle show, people! This is television 101 for saving money! You can still have Sentai footage battle scenes. Even Samurai did this right. But no, 10 first-class tickets for returning Rangers to say 2 lines of dialogue, stand around looking stoic, and nothing else. There's your anniversary team up. Dear Lord, what is happening in this world when you make Once a Ranger look like the competently made anniversary episode by comparison? And apparently these invitations to past Rangers were very last minute. They only went out a month before filming, which is insanity for any television production schedule. Some actors said they would have loved to have come back if they had actually had more time to plan the trip. And again, the very idea that they only sent these invitations out a month before filming is mind-boggling when they knew it was coming. 3 years of planning! And the entire thing feels like an afterthought. And perhaps it was. As I theorized, perhaps they weren't even going to do the anniversary originally. Perhaps originally they had just decided it was going to be Go Sager and skip the pirate anniversary season, because the little kids certainly won't care. But clearly somebody high up cared enough to make it happen, which instead points to bad management or leadership, which brings us to our next bit of speculation that I have no actual proof for. After Megaforce's conclusion, Jonathan Zacher ceased being the head producer and showrunner. Whether he just quit because he felt it was time to leave or because he was fired, I really don't know. But if I really had to guess, I would suspect he was fired, and here's why. If the budget was so minuscule, so hard-pressed that they needed the excessive amount of Sentai team footage, why did they spend so much money flying out former Ranger actors from America? International flights are not cheap, on top of housing them for the time needed to film, which cannot have been very long given what actually ended up in the episode. Why go through all that trouble when there are plenty of New Zealand Ranger teams that were around? I've heard that one excuse given was, well, we couldn't find them. Which is horse crap when fans were easily able to locate them. Some of them are still involved in other New Zealand television. And as I said last time, some of whom have already acted in multiple Power Rangers productions, and some of whom they brought back to do voice work. Yeah, Nick Sampson, who played Chip in Mystic Force, did a monster voice in Blue Saber Saga. Hell, even for a more live-action example, as many people pointed out, Grant McFarland, who played our favorite guinea pig mentor in Ninja Storm, was on screen just last season in the Tenjin Gate. These people were around, and being working actors, they were probably available. With the wasteful spending on things that they did not need to spend money on, it's not outside the realm of possibility that got Haim Saban's attention. Saban himself is not actively involved in the production of Power Rangers, but what would get him to take notice is spending an excessive amount of money. And as such, I don't think it's impossible that would get him to send Zacher packing and replace him with Judd Lin for the next season. But as I've said, this is all speculation. The constant problem I've had with History of Power Rangers is finding reliable behind-the-scenes information. Despite living in a world of mass social media connections and DVD extras and all the bells and whistles, production of most of this stuff tends to be hush-hush until years later, partially because kids don't care about the behind-the-scenes, and partially because nobody wants to talk about it, for fear of breaking an NDA or burning bridges in the system, or just because they don't know what's happening. So I scrounge for what information I can find, try to get verification when possible, and then speak it. And sometimes I get things wrong. I'm trying to make sense of it just as much as everyone else. So remember, most of this is either assumptions or I got it from a second source who could be equally full of it. But I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that in a season that spent tens of thousands of dollars recreating suits, flying actors out to New Zealand for a single day of shooting, housing them, giving them lines to speak, doing lots of promotional shots in additional makeup and costumes that have nothing to do with the episode, and then flying them back again, and all of this on very short notice, according to the actors contacted, that maybe Saban wasn't very happy about how much money was wasted on this production. A production that already had a massive promotional campaign, one that did not deliver the numbers they wanted, and was met with critical lambasting. But let's move away from what I think happened to what actually happened. The villains are boring. I'll give Rock credit in that he was the most interesting out of all the various enemies we saw, since he was not only the biggest single threat the Rangers ever fought, he certainly had some things going for him in terms of his personality. He always had more complicated schemes and plans, liked to manipulate or make allies and use them to fight his battles, recruiting the mutants, kidnapping Robo Knight twice, Rico the robot. As royalty, it makes sense that he played the political game better. It's entirely possible that that's why he was sent to the War Star Insect, that one of his political games lost and he was exiled as punishment. Hell, his plan against the Rangers in Vrock is Back probably would have worked if not for a combination of the Rangers turning Robo Knight back to good and them managing to take advantage of the eclipse somehow, and yet he still scored the only major victory against them by killing Robo Knight in the end. The rest of the evil forces, well, Malkor and Kreepox were boring. Vakar was more interesting in that he had a personality, but was generally incompetent and annoying. Yes, humorous villains can be fine, but probably not the best idea when we're supposed to be taking the situation seriously. And Mavro was just there at the end. The flunkies and generals felt like they needed more expansion, and I honestly don't buy the can't tell compelling stories in only 20 episodes line. Other shows have been able to do it with less time available to them, and they could have done more to tie in a villain story with a hero story. But instead, it was all fight scenes all the time. And that, of course, brings us to our heroes. Gosei and Tensu ultimately served no purpose but to give the Rangers stuff. Zordon at least imparted wisdom and information to the Rangers, but Gosei's connection to Zordon is never expanded upon or mentioned again after the first episode. The origins and backstory for either character is missing, and really their presence could have been filled by an alarm sounding. Really, it actually kind of would have been better that way. Tensu would be fine to keep at the command center, but drop Gosei. Have this be some backup base set up by Zordon to recruit a new team of Rangers when the right conditions were met and the Rangers figure this stuff out on their own, but with Tensu to help guide them in the details. Instead, Gosei himself can hardly be called a mentor since he does no mentoring. He just says he believes in them. Even Zordon at least contributed his energies at times to activities to help the Rangers. You know, I've got to imagine that with what we know about Zordon, his backup plans, his communications, his own history, the various Zords and weapons that he did or knew about, if maybe he entrusted all this to Gosei, who of course had no idea that some of this was an in case of last resort kind of thing, so we just started handing out weapons and powers left and right. Gosei is just in over his big wall-mounted head. In 2 episodes, he says he gave the Rangers a day off, except of course they don't really have days off like this. The Samurai Rangers at least lived and breathed their entire lives training and whatnot, so it makes sense that they would get time off from their mentor. These kids are already in high school, and we see them having fun and relaxing and enjoying themselves all the time, even during the Armada invasion. And since they have to be called in if there's an emergency, they're still on duty anyway. As I discussed during the recap portion, Robo Knight is the best character, mainly for having an actual story arc. While the protector of the environment thing is goofy as all hell, we see him grow as a person and become more comfortable around the Rangers. He makes mistakes, he actually gets in legitimate arguments with them over their involvement with his activities, and eventually someone who didn't care about human lives caught in the crossfire sacrificed himself to save a single person's life. Admittedly, Orion's not human, but the sentiment was there. Speaking of our other 6th Ranger, Orion sadly was just underdeveloped. It feels like they had a season's worth of scripts laying around for his character development to actually do all those things he talked about in The Wrath to learn from the Rangers, but it never came to be. His story is somewhat similar to Taizan's from Overdrive: survivor's guilt, swearing vengeance, although in Orion's case, despite him claiming that he's after revenge, we never really see him get angry. The worst it gets is the flashback where he screams no, but otherwise him proclaiming that he won't let Earth get destroyed like Andrasia is delivered flatly and without conviction. And why didn't he introduce himself to the Rangers right away? Why wait until after a battle or run away from the others prior to that? Jake has a ton of character episodes on the show, but again, none of it is really an arc or development, aside from Power of 6, where he feels guilty over letting jealousy of Orion get the better of him and cause him to screw up. Otherwise, his character existed to do 2 things: be charming and jokey, or to show he had a crush on Gia. However, the relationship doesn't go anywhere for 2 seasons. It's just he is unsubtle about having a crush on her, but nothing has ever advanced until the final episode, if you can even call that advancing. Gia knows that Jake has a crush on her, but just isn't interested, until she kisses him on the cheek at the end for seemingly no reason. There's more development of Mike and Emily's relationship, which I remind you was either so subtle it could be mistaken for friendship, or just said out of nowhere by Scott. Actually, I take that back. There are occasional subtle references to her waiting for him to ask her out, but never taking initiative herself, despite that being against her character. And then a bizarre, slightly freaky moment in The Grass is Always Greener or Bluer, where Noah and Jake get their bodies switched around, and she seems to have the hots for Noah in Jake's body when he expresses some scientific facts. Ciara Hanna actually auditioned for Samurai and was even offered the part of Emily. On a gut feeling, she decided to turn down the role, and really that was for the best. While this series was bad at character development, in terms of personality portrayed by the characters through their actors, Ciara did a much better job portraying Gia as confident and in charge of the room when she needed to be, which would not have fit with Emily's insecure self-doubt. That's the thing about Gia. She is given no character-focused episodes at all. The closest we get is the episode United We Stand, when a monster turns her and Emma against each other.
That's it.
And yet you don't necessarily notice the lack of focus episodes because Ciara's performance commands the audience's attention. She just portrays a fierceness through body language and how she speaks. She is completely in control of herself and surroundings, demonstrated in the first episode when she effortlessly catches a book that Emma drops, not even having to look at it. Noah is curious and scientific. He sets up a social network for the school, makes adjustments to Jake's axe, examines a loogie in the first episode, and builds their big-ass cannon weapon for the second season. Despite going viral being an episode about him believing in himself and needing to prove himself, he has a second one in Super Megaforce in Blue Saber Saga. As such, the writers really didn't do anything different from him other than being the smart one. They also had an episode about him not getting humor, which, yeah, sorry, I wouldn't have laughed either at the garbage material in that episode, so I've got to sympathize. It's sad, really, since it's clear if he had been given more meat to this character, he would have been excellent. Emma and Gia are best friends, supposedly have been since they were little kids. Her personality is, well, I hate to say it, but kind of an environmentalist hippie. And I don't mean that in a standard dismissive manner, oh, she cares about plants, what a hippie. No, I mean, she seems vapid to the point of airhead status when it comes to the environment. She won't shut the hell up about making the Earth peaceful and how, like, it's so peaceful up here, guys, and oh, that flower is so awesome and beautiful and peaceful in nature, guys. She even imagines at one point Earth before humans were around with such a smile on her face as to imply she wants to wipe out everything. When they're supposed to be looking for the animarium, she once again is all, the Earth is so peaceful up here, meaning she's not even doing the mission they were sent out to do. According to Gia in United as One, Emma always knows what it takes to make others happy, and then proceeds to ignore people's obvious discomfort, like Jake when he's forced to carry all her crap to a butterfly preserve that he doesn't want to go to. She's also into photography, but only in the sense that she takes pictures of things. We see nothing else on that matter. Really, it's just a way to further her, OMG, Earth is like so peaceful and beautiful, and we need to be one with nature, you guys. Her mother might be dead, according to Harmony and Discord, since she said her mother would always sing each year when flowers were blooming, and that singing to the trees herself reminds Emma of her. Subsequently, apparently she can sing terrible calm pieces of music that do make the flowers bloom without the assistance of an amplifier for seemingly no reason. Finally, we get to Troy, who is sadly the worst actor on the show. Now, I've seen interviews with the guy where he is capable of opening up, so I don't know how much of this was bad direction or just them selecting the worst takes to go with, but it's amazing how wooden some of his delivery is.
This one will be hard to beat. Dreams are the things humans wish for and believe in. They are the goals each of us hope to achieve.
I'm tired. I'm gonna take a nap. It's never been about me. We all fight for the Earth. That fight will continue.
Then again, it's not helped by him having a complete lack of character other than never give up. According to one interview, we actually did learn some more about his purported hardship that never made it on screen. That the show was supposed to open with him getting dropped off somewhere in City Town by his father in the military, and that he is basically told, you're living with your uncle in this place where you don't know anybody, bye. And we're supposed to get a real sense of why he was so closed off and a bit brooding, with his father's advice being, only trust yourself. Certainly would have given us more to work with, but considering how little development there was for the entire cast, I don't think it would have helped that much. It would at least explain some of his actions. For example, in Ultra Power, the others start partying for no reason, and he walks away to brood at the Ranger Keys, but then is pulled back into the party reluctantly. The most emotion he shows is during his Super Saiyan moment in Vrock is Back. Oh, and to no one's surprise at all, Andrew Gray is also a big Dragon Ball Z fan. And again, I can't be certain if it was him or the director who got him to be so utterly stiff and robotic all the time. In Who's Crying Now, he encounters two off-brand bullies who seem to think they're intimidating, when the worst they do is block his path. Then for no reason whatsoever, suggest he's going to cry. Unfortunately, Troy is a robot without genuine people personality, so when he tries to be intimidating in return, he just looks like a stone-faced statue unable to convey anything. Was that the adversity Gosei said he encountered in life? People trying to bully him, but unable to because his programming was not designed to resemble the humans? What's funny is that even the cast, according to interviews after the fact, acknowledged the problems of the show and the lack of character development, and they were trying to get the producers to inject more humor and personality into the show. As such, it's difficult to ascribe the failures of the season to any one source. Maybe the writers, but clearly some stuff was meant to go in, so editors are at blame. Well, then what about directors who chose not to include that stuff either? You can't blame one single person for all the problems of a show. You can still blame the show itself, though, for failing to live up to what it was supposed to be, and boy howdy is Megaforce a failure. Here's the real problem with Samurai, and to a greater degree Megaforce, in regards to the Neo-Saban era, or however you want to describe it. Television for children has evolved. We live in a world where shows like Avatar and Steven Universe are able to present so much emotion, depth, character development, and complexities in their stories to a degree that, by and large, did not exist back when Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was on the air. Exceptions existed, of course, but more and more story-driven children's material is being produced nowadays. We've demanded better stuff for kids, and for the most part, kids are getting better stuff. But then there's Samurai and Megaforce. And when you have stories as simple as these, in order to compete with those shows and have a lasting effect that will make people want to come back for more and more, you need to do more with the characters if the overall story itself isn't going to provide the complexity. But they're not. It's just, this is bad guy, hit bad guy, now go and rest our heroes. It's unfair to the younger audiences that deserve better and insulting to the adult audiences who have seen better from this franchise before. As a children's show, it's supposed to be giving lessons to kids, but they're the same kind of lessons that were done back in Mighty Morphin. Stuff like, just ignore a bully, words can't hurt you. Hey, guys, it's 20 years later, and shockingly, we've discovered that's horse crap, especially in the internet age. Save the environment! How? I don't know, don't pollute or something. Save the environment! Captain Planet had more complexity than this. Times have changed, but this show has not. The reason I did that big retrospective music video in RPM was because at that point, it really did feel like the show had come so far and done so much. If I had tried to do it here, let's see how far we've come, would have been an ironic statement, since it felt like we're actually going backwards. There's your title for this one right here. There and Back Again, a Power Rangers tale. And so we have come to a bit of an end, my friends. 5 years ago, Power Rangers was off the air seemingly for good. I had just done an Atop the Fourth Wall episode homaging it, and as such had watched a bunch of old episodes. I saw a bunch of patterns that were probably never intended to be there and wanted to express my bizarro theories to the world. So I started a retrospective series to cover it all. Sometimes they were frequent, other times, not so much. The show marches on, but now we are caught up. At the time of this writing, Power Rangers Dino Charge has completed its first season, and like with Samurai and Megaforce, I won't be talking about it until it's finished in its entirety. And rest assured, that will happen. But for now, this is the end. Much like Power Rangers itself, it seems we will never die and keep going on. I want to thank everyone who has supported this endeavor over the last few years. And yes, that includes the people who have derided me for thinking too hard about a kids show, to the people who overeagerly contacted me asking when's the next History of Power Rangers. I may get frustrated sometimes, but in the end, you do it because you care. Whether it be because you feel I could be doing something more valuable with my time, or just because you really want to see the next one. Your support has made this possible, and it is the reason why I didn't stop doing it after a while, and won't stop doing it. If you're only familiar with my work through these retrospectives, please check out some of my other work, like Atop the Fourth Wall, a weekly scripted review show where I look at terrible comic books. And yes, it's even for people who don't read them. Or, if you want to see me look at other American or adapted tokusatsu works like VR Troopers or Big Bad Beetleborgs, please consider contributing to my Patreon. Those videos will be made when we hit the highest milestone. When next we meet, the history of Power Rangers will enter a world full of strife in Power Rangers Dino Charge. Until then, I am very lucky to have you all as my viewers, and may the power protect you all.
What is love?
Why don't you ask Jake? He'll tell you all about love.
There is nothing I can learn from him.